Hello everyone, this is Martin from ZenKit. Today we have here David Allen, inventor of the very famous Getting Things Done methodology. We will discuss topics about the future of productivity. He will start with a short introduction of what Getting Things Done is for the people who are not quite familiar with this framework. So here he is, David Allen.
Sure, Martin, thanks, and thanks for the invitation. Happy to be here. Getting Things Done was just a methodology or a set of best practices that I discovered over the last 30 plus years about how to achieve desired results and experiences with as little effort as possible. And did that first for myself, turned around in my consulting practice, used it with all my clients, produced exactly the same kind of results as I was uncovering these techniques, and sort of put it together as a whole sort of holistic model about how to think through your stuff, how to keep a head clear, and give you the space to focus on your meaningful things. So then between 1997 and 2001, I wrote the first book, Getting Things Done, The Art of Stress-Free Productivity, and that sort of hit a nerve around the world. So I'm now just doing work all over the place, speaking, coaching, training, and we've developed a network of exclusive representatives of our training program, the Getting Things Done training program around the world. So that's taking a lot of my time right now.
Great. So speaking of productivity, how has productivity changed since these 10 years or the last 5 years? Or how have the challenges for productivity changed over the time?
Well, the methodology about how you produce a result is old as dirt. So there's nothing new about how do you get stuff to happen. You focus on outcomes, you decide next actions and move toward it till it's complete. So that's going to be true 200 years from now. It was true 200 years ago. What's different because of knowledge work as opposed to just doing work that's right in front of you, we actually have to think to figure out what to do. So it's an algorithm about what are the things we need to think and decide about. What does an email mean to me? What do these meeting notes mean to me after the meeting? What is this stuff? What does this mean to me? This idea I woke up with, about a new business I want to start, and then how do I engage with that appropriately? So that's kind of a new world that's really shown up in the last 50 or 70, 75 years of people that actually had to think to figure out what to do during the day as opposed to having it obvious in front of their face. So that's knowledge work, as the late Peter Drucker sort of defined that. What's changed in the last 10 years is probably the biggest thing that's changed is how fast things change. That keeps speeding up. So the speed of change is speeding up. And what's different about the new digital 24/7 always-on world is that most people can very easily allow themselves to get both addicted to that and distracted by that, simply because of the stress of opportunity of how many things you could be thinking about, how many things you could be doing, how many resources you could be accessing. It's the stress of opportunity that to a large degree is creating a sense of overwhelm. And so the number of people who need a good methodology about how to surf on top of that instead of feeling buried by it has grown tremendously. Whereas it used to be maybe a minority of fast-track professionals that were beginning to taste the overwhelm of email and all that stuff. Now it's pretty much everybody. So your mother, your sister, stay-at-home dads, physicians, attorneys, teachers, students. I've known from the beginning that this stuff helped anybody with a busy life. But, the original book that I published in 2001 was really focused on the fast-track professional because they were the people in most pain and, had the most reason to uptake the methodology and to implement it. Now, with a new edition that I wrote a couple of years ago, I expanded that with the broad range of people that really need to do this these days to stay sane. So that's really what's most of what has changed is the audience and the need for it, given how complex the world can seem now with that sort of 24/7 always-on world we're in.
All right. So basically, Getting Things Done is a framework which does not require any software. But speaking of software, do you see any tools or features that you're missing today, which could be built but are not built today? Is there anything that you're missing so far?
Well, sure. I mean, the technology exists to be able to walk into a room and it says, "Hi, Martin, how are you?" And it knows that it's 3 o'clock in the afternoon. It knows what your blood pressure is. It knows what kind of things you tend to do optimally at 3 o'clock in the afternoon when your blood pressure is like that. And it automatically gives you a map and a dashboard as a hologram in the middle of the room that you can then that you program yourself in terms of how you want to filter that information and what you want to see. But then you can change that as need be. And it's bi-directional, so wherever that information is coming from, as you change it in that hologram, it goes back to its original source and also changes the raw native data there. And we're not even close. You could do it. It's possible. That technology is there, but first of all, that would be highly expensive, have all kinds of legal issues in terms of bidirectionality, in terms of software and different apps, that you want to be able to access. And the market doesn't even think they need it. Most people are still keeping shit in their head. So why would they pay for a piece of software that does all that? Right?
So how do the current mega trends like machine learning or Internet of Things or mobile, you name it, how do they help in productivity? Can they enhance productivity today, in your opinion?
Well, come on. That's like saying, how does Google Maps help? Oh, it's fabulous. Come on. Where was life before GPS? Come on. So a lot of those were the word processor. My God, that changed the world. Simply. So did spreadsheets. I don't think there's really anything yet that has shown up that I've seen that was that much of a game changer yet. Though, if you know Kevin Kelly's book, The Inevitable, I think he's right on that there are 12 trends, including virtual reality and AI, that have now passed the game fun sort of thing, and they're now, we only call things AI if they haven't been embedded yet. but AI is currently working now. Yeah. you know so yeah, I think all of that is, to if you buy into Kevin's working hypothesis there, that we are at the beginning stage of something much bigger than even the Industrial Revolution in terms of how that may change how we operate, how we work, etc. But if you're talking about productivity, the funny thing is, see, if you were the only person who had Word or Excel on the planet, you'd win the game. The problem is everybody's got it. So you don't have any competitive edge by having new technology. You're just trying to stay afloat, given what's going on. So are you more productive? Well, sure. I'm certainly can be a lot more productive out there with the, Google Maps when I walk around town to see, oh, where's that restaurant I heard about or whatever. And, with a lot less effort, I can do a lot of cool stuff now. All they're doing is really speeding things up. They haven't changed the game. So
what you're saying is that machine learning would help you to speed up, but they will not help you in the decision process. So you have to do the hard work by yourself.
It could be, but the results, if you're trying to have the machine learning then make decisions for you, that won't work. If you're doing it for decision support, that's what it's for. Hey, give me, now that I've done this X number of times, then it's going to say, okay, well, I'm going to give these in this order because that's the order you've used it before. But I still may and will want to keep changing the order. You don't want Naziware. Sorry.
Right. So what you're saying is that machine learning and other sophisticated techniques will support your decision process, but they will not do the decisions for you. So basically, you will need your head in the future as well.
Yeah.
Hopefully, right?
So that's why I say, GTD or my methodology 3.0 is just decision support. Because that's, that image that I gave you of a hologram showing up in the room and giving you the dashboard of information that you want, given the time and context you're in, then that still is not going to make decisions for you. It's just going to give you the stuff you told yourself that you wanted to look at when it was time to go home to the family or when it was time to go to the board meeting or whatever. It's building orienting maps, essentially, is what GTD is really about. How do you orient yourself in space and time and stop using your head as your office? So building the external brain, that is anybody using a calendar has already admitted that your head can't do it. That you need external support in order to be able to see where you are in space and time and locate yourself appropriately instead of simply being driven by what's latest and loudest and by survival. So the need for the external brain is going to continue to grow and grow and grow and grow and grow. And most people listening to this are probably still using their head as their office.
So basically software And tools, they should present the best possible context for your decisions when you need it and where you need it.
Well, yeah, but it gets pretty subtle. Like, what do you need to look? What do you need to put in front of your face before you spend the weekend with your family? You know, how about the issue that your kid was dealing with in school? Do you remember that? Oh, yeah, I ought to, that'd be really nice if I sort of knew what their favorite color was and knew what they did last week and knew what they won at. And that'd be really neat to be able to see all that. Most people haven't even thought they should do that, much less have the tool that'll let them do it. So that's what I mean by decision support, is really what kind of information and context and data, would be useful to me to be making better decisions, spending time with my family or in the board meeting or in the meeting with the banker or whatever. What do I need to see in front of me? So yeah, so there are programs out there where you say, okay, this person's on my calendar, so they're automatically creating a portfolio from you out of social media and so forth about who you're going to meet with. Yeah, that's okay, but nobody's really doing that on a consistent basis because it just takes too much trouble to set the thing up, and it's still not complete then anyway. But that's the direction that we'll go in.
So it's much more about presenting information than storing and structuring.
Yeah, at the right time and place. I don't need to be reminded, as you know, and if you're a GTD practitioner, that's one of the reasons we found that organizing your action reminders by context is useful, because if I'm not out for errands, I don't need to see my errands list. If my wife Catherine's not around, I don't need to see my list of stuff to talk to her about. I only need to do those when that situation shows up, and then that's the data that I will need to see to optimize my experience in that situation. So that has an infinite amount of subtlety to it. How many different situations can you be in out there? That's why I say it, at a certain point, they probably already have it where, you've got a monitor built in under your skin that registers your alcohol content and shuts off email if it gets too high. So you don't send those regretting emails that you should.
Part of the beauty of getting things done is that it can be done with very simple structures like lists or to-do lists, and these lists are pretty much black and white, so either you have done a task or you haven't done it so far. And a recent trend in the productivity market is the representation by Kanban boards. So Kanban boards represent more like a workflow, not the black and white thing, but more stages like to do and progress, to be verified and finally done, which allows team members to get through different stages of completion of a task. So my question would be, can you combine these two worlds? So getting things done, which is perfect for me personally, and the team world.
Sure. Well, no, I've coached many people that are attempting to get into, team management, software and applications like Asana and other things like that, where in Wunderlist, where you can actually share lists with other people and see that. So, you can get as sophisticated as you want. Getting things done is simply about what is the things you need to do to get that project off your mind. Because if it's on your mind, it's not happening. Things are on your mind because there are decisions about it you haven't made, or you haven't parked the results in some trusted place. So the whole idea is, okay, if what you need to do is to lay out a critical path on a project with the key milestones and key elements there and due dates of the sub-projects and things like that, absolutely, then you need to do that. If that's what you need to do to get it off your mind, you need to get it into that level of granularity or that level of control. But once you then set that up, then you need to be asking yourself, how often do you need to look at it, and who needs to look at it? Who owns the project? Who needs to look at what level of detail? But then they still are going to have to clarify what exactly is the next action on these, because none of those action plans, or almost none of them, have specific next actions about them. You need to look at the plan and go, oh God, I got to call Fred about that. And the call Fred reminder is then what you have to be accountable to do once you look at those maps. So you can create as complex a map as you want. As a matter of fact, you should, but no more. Like as Einstein said, it should be as simple as possible, but no simpler, right?
Yes.
So,
a principle which occurred to me many times.
Yeah, and particularly in a team setting, the right things in front of the right people or the right person. Who owns that thing? Well, first of all, they're the people who need to determine what level of granularity that needs to be looked at, how often, to feel comfortable about the status of the project, right? And that could be different for each project. That's why it's hard to find a template that you can trust, because every project has a different amount of granularity, a different amount of experience that you have, a different amount of stuff. So that's why the simplicity of the approach just says, how much do you need? And then you better go do that, right? But don't do it more than that.
So what you're saying is that simplicity and easiness to use is key to any kind of well supporting systems, and but there has to be a trade-off, because the system also has to have a certain amount of power to support you in your decision processes. So how can this be solved?
Well, here's the problem, is that you have to then come up with a heuristic or the logistics of how people are going to work that tool and agree on that. That's the problem with Asana or something like that, is because just to come up with how to structure it, what projects go at what level of detail and how many sub-projects, and then getting everybody to do it. And if you have people that play that aren't playing on the tool, it doesn't work. So everybody has to play. So it's like a good CRM where you just fire their ass if they don't input, because it's absolutely critical that that client data be available to anybody at any time when the client calls to be able to pull it up. Now, that's going to require double entering, because you're going to have to then manage your own personal system. You're going to have to do that, or you're going to have to then go into your CRM or go into the Asana or whatever that's a groupware, and then see what you need to track in there versus what you need to track on your own. But again, that's why this is hard to do, because you have to get very agreed upon rigor and protocols to make any of those things work on a team basis. It's very easy to use Asana or Wunderlist or Evernote or any of those things as your own personal list manager, because that's really all you need. You just need a list. I have a project list. I have a list of calls I need to make, a list of stuff to do. So you're right. In a sense, it's that simple. As soon as you have more than two people or more than one person, when you're trying to share those lists, my big question is why? A lot of people want shared stuff because the individuals aren't being accountable to get it done, and then they figure peer pressure is going to have it happen. Come on. And so then you're going to have to overstructure your team structures because you don't trust the individuals to handle what they've been made accountable for. I know, because I've been involved in holacracy for 6 years, and when you see a holacracy organization, if they don't trust the individuals are actually walking away with their own projects and their own action items and managing that with rigor, then they have to overstructure those meetings to be able to then trust it. See, in our company, we've been doing holacracy for 6 years. We hardly have any kind of shared project bulletin board. Why? We all know who's got it, and we all trust everybody to manage it. So our meetings are quite simple, and we don't need a lot of the complexity that you need to share. You may need to share a lot of complexity, but only as much as you need.
Right. Since we are diving deeper into the GTD universe, you mind explaining a little bit more about the core of getting things done?
Basically keep anything potentially meaningful that you might need to decide to do something with out of your head. Sooner than later, decide specifically, is it an actionable item? And if so, what's the next action? And if one action won't complete it, what's the project? And that's the clarification step. So you captured the stuff to begin with, then you clarified specific actions and outcomes, and then you need to organize those reminders in appropriate categories or lists, so that in step 4, you can step back and reflect and review all of that stuff as appropriate to make sure you've located yourself in space and time with all the levels of commitment that you are engaged in, so that step 5, you engage your attention and your activities based upon a trusted choice, now that you can see the whole gestalt, see the whole map. So that's the game. So, as you know, it can take you a few years to make that habitual, so that is how you're actually living your work and life. But it's pretty simple stuff.
Cool. We came pretty much to the last question. Well, as a conclusion, is it safe to say that tools are very good for supporting you in your decision process? They're getting better and better, but you still need to do the decisions in your head.
It's actually an installed thought process. That's why it's tool independent. You do need tools, because if you're going to keep an external brain, you need some sort of tool to hold it in. Whether that's paper or digital or write it on the wall or write it on your butt. Yeah, yeah. Any and all of that. As long as it's external and as long as it is you've made the appropriate decisions about it so that you have the right content, on the map. Uh, if you haven't figured out what the next action is on your project, you have no idea how many phone calls you need to make. So when you're at a phone, seeing a map of all the calls you need to make, if they're not on there, doesn't help. So you have to capture and clarify first before you actually have the content about what to organize. That's the biggest problem, is most people are buying software because they didn't make the last one work. So they're trying the new, they think the new is going to get them in charge and going to get them in control and going to fix it. And then they say, oh, well, that didn't work. I need the new. So give me the new.
Yeah. Well, sometimes apparently we need some toys to keep us away from the hard work of learning the methodology then, right?
Yeah, well, most people haven't learned. That's why it took me 25 years to get the book written, and now the rest of my life to try to figure out how to spread this around the world so that people can improve their lives, without stressing out. So.
Great, okay. One more thing. I heard that you are in the process of publishing a new book. Is that right?
Well, not yet, really. I wrote a new edition of the Getting Things Done book a couple of years ago. So that's still the big manual about all of this. But I'm co-authoring with a couple of guys, writing a book about getting things done for teens. But that's probably going to be several months, maybe by the end of the year that may be out. But if people want to just follow along with me, they can go to www.gettingthingsdone.com and they can kind of see what's up.
So David, I want to thank you very much for the interview. Thank you to let us be part of your thoughts about productivity. Thank you.
Thanks, Martin. My pleasure.
So this was David Allen. I hope you enjoyed the interview. We will provide some more information about getting things done at the end of this. See you next time then. Bye bye.